Hello, welcome to a Map Business Online video presentation. I think sometimes it's important for Map Business Online salespeople and demo technicians to think about what it would be like to be a first-time user of Map Business Online and just import data, and in this case, import a list of zip codes and what people will go through when they do that. So I'm going to try and push this video along under that premise. You've got a list of zip codes. You've come to Map Business Online because you want to visualize those zip codes on the map. You're not necessarily interested in making a territory right away. You're a little overwhelmed by that concept. You just got some zip codes and you want to see what it looks like on the map when they're color shaded. So there's your list of zip codes. It's in Excel with a zip code column header and a list of about 62 zip codes all the way down. Pretty simple. Within Map Business Online, there's two buttons that you can use to import data, there and there. Those two buttons. There's a plot data on the map for points and one for creating territories. We're going to focus on the plot data on map to begin with here. And we can go down to this box called Map and Data, and you'll see there's a list of map layers. We've got the street layer on. Can turn it off and on. And the only other layer we're going to need today is the zip code layer. So I'm going to check box that on. I'm going to put a check in the box, which brings up the zip code layer. And if I hover over that layer, you'll see there's a little Edit Map Properties, Edit Map Layer Properties button, which is a gear that I can click. And I can go into this particular layer, zip code layer, and I can manipulate the boundaries, the boundary color. Like I can go back to my typically light shaded boundary color. I can change the color of the background zip codes, and I can change their transparency. If I go all the way to the right with that little scroll bar, I can make them translucent. I can see through the zip codes to the background map, or I go all the way to the left and I can't see through them. They're going to be opaque. And I'm going to keep it somewhere in the middle for now. So now I've got my map, I've got my zip code layer, and I need my zip code data. So I'm going to click Plot Data on the map. I'm going to navigate to where that data is located on my laptop desktop. Sometimes it brings up the actual data set. And now I'm going to just click Next. It's going to give me an option for the sheet. And now it's got a dialog box that matches my data to the geocoding or address functionality within Map Business Online. And in some cases, if you had a full address database, you'd be matching street and city and state as in addition to zip. But this time we've only got zip code. So all you've got to worry about is that zip code layer. That comes pre-populated. Typically, if you've got it labeled in a half decent, associative way with zip codes, it's going to come right in. I'm going to click Next. Here's where we deal with labeling. We really don't need to do much fancy work on labeling here. We don't have columns for dollars or columns for extra information. So we're just going to click Plot. Map Business Online puts that data on the map. It tells you that it geolocated 62 locations. And you can see those blue dots down in the corner. It brings up this data window, which is your data within Map Business Online. And then it says, do you want to color code the data on the map? And it's referring to those points. And in this case, as you recall, we're going to color shade zip codes, the actual boundary areas of zip codes. And so we don't want to color code that data at this point. So I'm going to click No. Now, if you did click yes, it's going to just plop into a dialog box where it walks you through color coding the points. It's not a problem if you want to do that. It's easy, but that's not what we wanted to do right now. So I'm going to click no on that. And this is the data window. You can scroll up and down. You're able to filter if you wanted to filter and find just one set of zip codes, or one zip code, I should say, 30148. You can actually just do a little search for it and get rid of that. So there's a filtering tool there might be useful in some cases. But there are your points. They're in blue dots on the map. There's your data now listed in the Map and Data tab. You can actually go in and change the colors, the sizes on your points. You can see those down there. I'll go back to blue. I'm a big fan of blue dots. Now I'm going to click over here on my navigation bar. I'm going to click this zoom tool. You could zoom using this scroll bar. I like the zoom tool for a fast zoom in. And then I just draw a little square around my dots. And now I'm in looking at my area of interest. And those are dots on the map. You can see the zip codes with boundaries in the background. And those dots, when they're brought in to Map Business Online as zip codes and dots are placed on the map, those are what we call centroid points. They're in the center of the zip codes, roughly. And so those dots, we don't need them. We're going to turn them right off. Now, sometimes you might like to play with those dots. It can be helpful for labeling. You can make them wicked small so nobody can see the dots, but there's no need for those right now if we want to just color shade zip codes. So I'm turning those off. Now I'm going to go up to this button on the toolbar. It's 3 puzzle pieces, and I'm going to click it. It's called Color Code Map, and it's a process for color shading a map layer. And in this case, we're going to color shade zip codes. I click Next. Now that brings up a color shading dialog. And you might be a little intimidated when you first see this, but we're going to walk through it. So there's a drop down that lets you choose your data. There's also demographic data there. If you're interested in color coding things by demographic data, it's there for you. But let's just go back to zip codes. The options are either you're going to color code by the count, the number of dots you had per zip code, or the zip code data itself that you brought in. That's the zip5 code data. That's the data you brought in. And you can see it's got a list of 62 zip codes here with colors pre-assigned, which we can just click Done on. That gives you different colors for every zip code. And if we go back to our color code map again, which is easy to do, just click on it again, go through it, and it brings up what you just did. If we go back to that, you'll see we could go up to, you can go through 62 of them, but we could go up to 100 different zip codes and color code them all different colors. Now, in my opinion, that's not what I would do with this particular map. I want to see just my shaded zip codes. I don't want to confuse my boss with a whole bunch of different colors. So I'm going to go back again to that button. You can always go back, just march through it, and let's drop down to count and see what that looks like. So in that case, it's telling you you've got a count of one zip code, one dot per zip code on the map that the data that we just pulled in on that map. Now, Map Business Online only gives you, the bottom line here is 2. You can color code 2 at a minimum, different shade options. It doesn't give you a 1 because it's going to always have those that are colored and those that are not. That's why the minimum number is 2 here under count. So what we're going to do is where there's no zip code point on a zip code all across the country, the whole nation, for all the boundary zip codes, we're going to have a color shade. And so let's pick, you can pick whichever one you want. I'll go with that one. And for those that have got 1 point on the zip code, so they've got one of your dots that you've imported in, we're going to pick a color. And I'm going to pick a blue, a nice pretty blue because I like blue. I'm a boy. So those are the 2 colors that the zip codes will have on your map. We click Done, and now we have color shaded the zip codes that you brought in. And you'll notice in your list, there was a missing one there. And in the list that we had, there were some not adjoining zip codes over there. So it doesn't matter whether you've got them all together or in separate zip codes, there they are. So that's how you can bring in a list of zip codes, color shade them on the map for use in Map Business Online, Go to mapbusinessonline.com and take our free trial.